Well, another week in the books. Man, this week's season's going by fast. And now it's time for week 7, my week 7 picks of the 2016 NFL season. And last week I went 11-4. Not bad. And overall I have a winning percentage of almost 600 now. So that's not a very good start. And if you look to my left, actually to my right, it's the playoff bracket now after 6 weeks. So it'll be the Bills going to the Raiders, the Broncos going to the Texans, with the Patriots and Steelers having the byes. In the NFC, the Vikings and Cowboys would have the byes. The Packers would be going to the Seahawks, and the Redskins would go to the Falcons. And in this scenario, how nice. The Bills and Raiders, both teams have like the 2 longest playoff droughts in the league, and it would be nice to finally see them break it too. So now let's get to my picks. Of course, we start tonight with the Thursday night game. The Bears going to the Packers for, I think it's the 5th or 6th straight time the Bears were at Packers at night game. Remember, 2011 was Sunday night, 2012 was Thursday night, 2013 was Monday night, and the last 2 were Sunday night, and now Thursday night again. I mean, what the fuck? The Packers, in all those games except last year, oh, that's right, in 2013 too, but that was because Aaron Rodgers went out. Those games were blowouts. Why the fuck would they make this game a night game? If they're going to do it, make this game a night game, do it at the Bears where it has a much better chance of being close. And of course, although the Packers have been struggling, I can't believe they still have the #1 rush defense in the league after Ezekiel Elliott just went nuts on them. But even though Brian Hoyer's been doing much better than Jake Cutler, the Packers at home, and they have a very good history of beating the Bears by a wide margin, and they will tonight, 26-10. Crying out loud, I'm sick and tired of them always making these terrible picks for night games. But then we get to the 1 p.m. games on Sunday, and we start off with the second international series game. And if I'm correct, this is at a different stadium instead of Wembley, and that's the Giants at Rams. Oh boy, I can't even really I can't even pick a score because I actually don't know which way it would probably go. I mean, both are inconsistent. They're both are untrustable, and the only thing I would probably say maybe the side with is home field advantage, but they're playing in London, so there is no home field advantage. But since the Rams wins have been much more convincing than the Giants, I mean, the Giants wins this year, all of them were within a touchdown. So, yeah, they're 3-0, and the best they could have gone 6-0, but they could have also been 0-6. Whereas the Rams, they at worst maybe like 1-5 or 2-4, but they've been playing tougher than the Giants. So, although I can't think of a score, I would say maybe the Rams by a slight margin, but I wouldn't be surprised either if the Giants somehow pulled it off again. Then it's the Browns going to the Bengals, finally not for Thursday night for what's like the last 2 years. And of course, the Browns are the only winless team, and this is the first time they're 0-6 since 1999, their year when they first came back. And the Bengals finally, their tough part of the schedule is over, and they finish 2-4 like I predicted. So now let's see how they're going to bounce back after this. Now the hard part of the schedule is over, and I think the Bengals will win 24-7. The Redskins going to the Lions for the first time since 2010. Remember that debacle when they benched McNabb, and then Rex Grossman threw like a fumble that Ndamukong Suh picked up for a touchdown. That was pretty funny to watch when I saw that. But of course, now the Redskins have won 4 in a row, but I still don't trust them. I don't trust the Lions at all either. I mean, they did a comeback against the Colts, and they almost blew the game against the Eagles, for crying out loud. And remember, they did blow it against the Titans and the Bears too. And they did have a hard-fought game against the Rams last week. So, oh boy, you really can't trust either team. But the Lions are at home. They have a history of they've won like 3 in a row now against the Redskins. And their defense is much more trustable than the Redskins, and both secondaries are terrible. So I'm sure it's going to be high scoring. But with that defense for the Lions, it probably would hold the Redskins down a bit, and the Lions would probably win 24-21. But then watch, the Lions will shit the bed like always, and the Redskins will somehow pull it off. Then it's the Raiders going to the Jaguars for the first time since 2010. Oh boy, this is quite it's impossible to even pick a score for this game too for me. I mean, Raiders, yeah, they're 4-2, but that defense is god awful, and all their games they've won have been very, very close. So honestly, they could have been 0-6 if you think about it. The Jaguars, I mean, they got destroyed by the Chargers, and then they blew a chance to beat the Jaguars, the Packers and Ravens. So I mean, they could have been fucking 4-1, or at very worst. And remember those two games they beat against the Colts and Bears, that had to be come from behind wins too. So this team should have been 0-5 too. They're both playing. They're very underachieving so far this year, and I really don't trust either one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them wins, but based upon how they're playing, I would have to say maybe the Raiders, but the Jaguars could probably pull it off too, just like they did the last two games against the Colts and Bears. Then it's the Saints going to the Chiefs for the first time since 2008. And oh boy, Chiefs are inconsistent. That was a pretty impressive victory against the Raiders though last week. And the Saints have now won 2 in a row, although both I did predict. And the Chiefs seem to not have a very good secondary since Antonio Brown and Big Ben wrecked them a couple weeks ago. And they've been very inconsistent on the secondary. And the Saints have Breeze, so they could probably wreck that secondary too. But the Chiefs are at home, and they have a much better defense than the Saints. Shitty, god-awful defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win 31-24. But something keeps telling me that I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints win either. And then it's the Bills going to the Dolphins. I remember last year when the Bills not only swept them, but they dominated them. Oh boy. Because remember last year, the Bills went to Dolphins and they won 41-14. Tyrod Taylor absolutely went nuts against that terrible Dolphins defense. But the Bills won 4 in a row now. And unfortunately for them, Tyrod Taylor has not been as good as last year. And I mean, they can't sustain that 4-game win streak. They're not that good, and Rex Ryan's coach, and so we shouldn't expect that win streak to last. And I don't. Although the Dolphins are not good either, I just don't see Bills winning 5 in a row now. So I think the Dolphins will win 25-20. But I wouldn't be surprised either if the Bills did somehow pull it off. Then it's the Ravens going to the Jets. How about that? They had to play back-to-back times in New York, so I bet they stayed up there all that time, too. And Geno Smith's starting, too, about time. Put Fitzpatrick's ass on the bench where he belongs after those 11 interceptions. So Geno's going to make his first start in almost 2 years. Been that long. Although he did play against the Raiders last year for most of the game. And although he's starting, I don't think he's going to have enough time to get used to all the play calling and shit and that new offense that they've ran since he didn't really play at all last year and get used to that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens won, but I wouldn't be surprised either if the Jets somehow pulled it off. But honestly, since these teams are unpredictable, I also can't give a score. And it's the Vikings going to the Eagles for the first time since 2010. The Vikings still remain the only undefeated team, which is quite surprising with all those injuries. And that trade with Matthew Stafford that should have tanked them. And the Eagles finally seem to coming back to reality after now losing 2 in a row. And Carson Wentz did not look good at all against the Redskins last week. Although I don't trust the Eagles, I also don't trust the Vikings either. I mean, they're 5-0, but there's no way they can sustain that for long after those key injuries to Teddy Bridgewater and AP. Sam Bradford is going to shit the bed eventually. And when that happens, this Viking team's going to really, really have problems. And I think it's going to start this week. And I think the Eagles will finally take out the last undefeated team, 22-18. But seeing how the Eagles have been the last couple weeks, and the way the Vikings have been despite all those injuries, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they won either. Then it's the Colts going to the Titans. Remember that wild game last year, that wild finish? I think the Colts had to do a massive comeback too, because after that 0-2 start they had last year. So the Colts are 2-4, and they blew the big chance they had to beat the Texans last week. And the Titans have now matched their win total from last year, and they're doing much, much better than last year. And believe it or not, like history has shown since the last couple years, the Colts have struggled against the Titans when they go to their place. I mean, I think they're 3-1. No, 4-0. So they haven't lost there since 2011. But they haven't won like dominant victories. Well, except that 2014 game. All the other ones have been pretty close. And especially last year. I mean, for crying out loud, that Titans team was the worst team last year, although they didn't play as bad as they were. And the Colts just barely beat them last year. And the Colts are most certainly much worse now than last year. The Titans are most certainly better. So you would have to say the Titans would definitely win. And I think they will 37-27. But I also have a sinking feeling that the Colts will somehow pull off a miracle like they've done numerous times so far this year. Then we get to the 4 p.m. game, starting with the Chargers going to the Falcons for the first time since 2004. And oh boy, nice win against the Broncos last week, Chargers. But you still are very inconsistent. And you almost blew that game too, remember. And Falcons, man, you got ripped with that no pass interference call against the Seahawks last week. Should have probably been 5-1 right now. But hey, you're in the driver's seat of the NFC South, and it's up for you to grab, but you gotta win this. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers, once again, have a massive lead and just shit the bed and let the Falcons pull off the victory. And I think the Falcons will win 34-31. And it's the Buccaneers going to the 49ers for the first time since 2011. Oh boy, Kaepernick, he had a good start against the Bills last week and then shit the bed. Man, that was one hell of a throw. And the Buccaneers, they have a shitty defense, and that offense is inconsistent. And the 49ers are definitely a much better team when they're at home, but they haven't been doing well. But the team is still shitty overall. And the Buccaneers seem the much better team. Despite the fact that the 49ers are much better at home, I think the Buccaneers will somehow squeak it out 23-20, but I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers somehow won too. And then we get to the battle with the two top spots in the AFC playoffs on the line, and that's the Patriots going to the Steelers. Now, throughout the entire year, I thought it was going to be easily the Steelers, but I just found out Ben's going to be out for the next 2 to 6 weeks with that torn meniscus or whatever. And Brady, of course, has been shredding these defenses left and right so far this year. And, of course, now without Big Ben, there is no way in hell the Steelers are going to beat them. The Patriots will easily win 36-17. Then we get to the Sunday night game. The Seahawks going to the Cardinals. Oh, boy. You know what's really funny about this matchup? Even though the Cardinals have gotten better and better and better each year, well, except this year, since the Seahawks became good again in 2012. The Cardinals have only beaten the Seahawks at home one time. That was in 2012, Russell Wilson's first game. And every year since then, although they got better and better and better, they've lost every single match against Seahawks at home, and they've gotten worse. 34-20 in 2013. Then I think it was like 35-6 on 2014. And one last year like 38-0 or something like that. I mean, they get worse and worse, even though they're playing supposedly better. And, of course, they finally have shit the bed so far this year. They've rebounded to 3-3, but based upon the history and the way they've been playing against not only this year, but their history against hosting the Seahawks, I have to say the Seahawks will win 31-13. And then we get to the Monday night game and a revenge game, and that's the Texans going to the Broncos. First time since 2012. Remember that hit that Matt Schaub took like a piece of his ear off? That was an incredible hit. So it's a revenge game. Osweiler is going up against his former team. And, of course, yeah, he had that incredible comeback victory against the Colts. But remember, he was dog shit throughout the game until, like, the fourth quarter. And he's been dog shit throughout the entire season. I think he barely has a QB rating of over 70. That's god-awful. And that's with DeAndre Hopkins, for crying out loud. And that defense, of course, has not been really good, especially without J.J. Watt now. And, of course, Jadeveon Clowney's being a bust like I predicted. Oh, boy, yeah, the Broncos have lost 2 in a row, but you lost a close one to the Falcons, although you got boat raced in that one. And you got boat raced against the Chargers, which I predicted, but you did fought hard at the very end. But, of course, the way Osweiler's been playing, the way the whole Texans have been playing, I mean, think of it. They're 4-0 at home, but they're 0-2 on the road. They got shut out by a Tom Brady-less Patriots, and then they got destroyed by the Vikings a couple weeks later. I mean, and that's with a team that had injury problems too. You can't beat two teams that have major injury problems at their place, and not only do you lose them, you get shut out. What the hell? You think you're going to actually beat the Broncos? Come on, man. The Broncos will easily win this game 34-10. Well, those are my picks for Week 7. Hopefully I'll go another 11-4 or even better this time. I can't wait for Week 7, and I can't wait to watch the Bears at Packers tonight. So we'll see how I do.